Welcome to Animal Stories for Kids. If you like our stories, please give us a 5-star rating, subscribe to our podcast, and share it with your friends and family. Plus, check out exclusive show-related content and join the community at patreon.com/Animal Stories for Kids. And now, it's time for our story. Once upon a time, there was a barn swallow named Titus. Titus the barn swallow lived in a barn near a great field of corn on the countryside. He would fly over the fields and the creek, zipping through the air with his forked tail, slicing the wind with every turn. It was autumn, the time of year when the leaves changed colors. The air turned crisp, and the barn swallows began their great migration, or journey, south. For birds like Titus, this wasn't just a small trip. It was his very first migration. From a cozy little nest tucked under the rafters of a red wooden barn, he had learned how to catch bugs midair, how to ride the wind, and most importantly, how to follow the flock. For the barn swallows, going southward meant more sunshine, warm breezes, and so many insects to eat that a young barn swallow could barely eat the next day. For all the barn swallows, the sky was their road, the stars would become their compass, and the wetlands, lakes, and open skies below were their highway rest stops, full of dragonflies, mosquitoes, and mayflies. This was how barn swallows had traveled for generations, and it was now Titus's turn to take flight into the wide, wonderful world. But no one warned him about the fog, and no one told him he'd meet a creature who would change his journey forever. The flock had begun its first big migration, south, toward warmth, sunshine, and bugs galore. Titus, the barn swallow, had never flown so far before, but he chirped confidently, "I bet this is gonna be easy," as he zoomed past cattails and cornfields with his belly full of mosquitoes. Barn swallows, like Titus, are known for flying thousands of miles from their nests in barns, porches, and sheds, all the way to the south for winter. They dart low over lakes and wetlands, zipping after tiny insects mid-flight. Titus was doing just that when everything disappeared. A thick, swirling fog crept across the vast lake. One minute, Titus the barn swallow was following his flock over glittering water. The next, he couldn't see anything but white mist. Flock?" he chirped nervously. "Guys? Funny joke, but seriously, where are you?" The fog swallowed up every sound except for the tiny flap of his own wings. Titus flew in circles for a while, thinking maybe if he looped just right, the flock would reappear. But no flock, no shore, just endless, whispery mist. His belly grumbled, and his heart flapped even faster than his wings. He landed on a crooked twig poking out of the water, trying not to panic. Okay, barn swallows can do hard things," he whispered to himself. "I'll just wait here until the fog clears, or until some other barn swallow brings me a snack or something." Then, out of nowhere, something started talking.
"You're lucky I'm not your snack, kid,"
said an old voice from around him. Titus squawked and nearly fell into the lake. Hovering right behind him was a dragonfly, an old one, with wings like wrinkled parchment and a body that gleamed like a rainbow in the fog. "Don't sneak up on birds like that," Titus the barn swallow huffed. Also, technically, you are a snack for barn swallows like me.
And you're a midnight snack for a hawk.
The dragonfly shot back with a smirk.
But we're both out here in the fog, and there's no sense in eating each other if we both want to get out alive.
Titus blinked. That was a fair point.
You got a name, Snack?
The dragonfly asked. It's Titus, he said proudly, fluffing his chest feathers. First time migrating south. The dragonfly chuckled.
It figures. You're flapping around here like a lost bird. Listen, I've been around these parts for a while now. I know every reed, ripple, and raccoon in a 10-mile radius.
Titus perked up and asked, Can you help me find my flock? The dragonfly gave him a long look.
Maybe,
It said.
but we're gonna have to wait for the fog to settle. And, you've gotta promise not to eat me.
Titus said, Okay, but can't we just fly in the same direction I was going? The dragonfly settled on Titus the barn swallow's back and asked,
Don't you remember anything your elders taught you?
Mostly just don't eat bees and try not to poop in the nest, Titus said. The dragonfly sighed and said,
Well then, I guess you're lucky you've got me.
After about an hour, the fog thinned, but it was nighttime now. But overhead, the sky sparkled with stars, and it was bright. Titus stared up, and something in his chest fluttered. Not fear this time, but wonder. The dragonfly pointed with a spindly leg and said,
That bright star right there, you see it? Now that's how you start. What you gotta do is fly toward it. Your instincts will remember the rest.
Titus the barn swallow beat his wings and rose into the air. The dragonfly clung tight to Titus's back, legs curled and holding tightly. They soared together under the stars. Titus the barn swallow wasn't used to flying at nighttime, but he was having the night of his life, dodging and swooping bats in the sky and laughing at the wind. This is kind of fun, he chirped.
Well, I'm not having very much fun.
The dragonfly said, holding on tight.
You made too hard of a turn up there in the air, and I think my left leg is, permanently wiggly now.
Titus giggled, but the dragonfly smiled too. Titus the barn swallow and the dragonfly rested at a cliffside. There were signs on the cliffside that the migrating flock of barn swallows were just there a few hours ago. They were on the right track. In the morning, Titus and the dragonfly started their flight to continue to catch up to the flock. As the morning was starting to become brighter, a loud shriek split the air. A shadow darted from a tall pine. Sharp talons, curved beak, fierce eyes. A hawk. It locked its eyes on Titus, the barn swallow, and said,
Good morning, my yummy breakfast.
The dragonfly yelled,
Dive! Dive!
Titus zigged and zagged, heart thundering. The hawk chased close, wings slicing the air. Titus dove for the lake's surface, skimming just above it while the dragonfly held on as tight as it could and yelled directions.
Left! Right! Down! No, your other down!
The hawk yelled at Titus while flying closer and faster.
Now I'm going to eat you and your little dragonfly friend.
The hawk then lunged, but missed, splashing into the water with a screech. Titus the barn swallow and the dragonfly shot upward and didn't stop until the trees were below them. They flopped onto a tall peak of a rock on a hillside and gasped for breath. "I've never flown so fast," Titus said as he was wheezing and catching his breath.
"I've never yelled so much in my life,"
the dragonfly said while it was panting.
"You nearly turned me into a hawk soup."
They looked at each other, then burst out laughing. Then they continued on their way. As the sun rose higher, Titus the barn swallow spotted something in the distance. Faint chirps, fluttering shapes, and forked tails dancing in the sky. "My flock!" he shouted. "I see them!" Titus landed on a branch of a tall tree, and the dragonfly hopped off. Titus turned to the dragonfly, wings trembling with excitement. But the dragonfly looked still.
"Titus,"
the dragonfly said gently,
"this is where I stop."
"What? Why?" asked Titus. "We made it." The dragonfly looked toward the warm southern horizon and said,
"You barn swallows, keep going. But dragonflies have their own life to live. My journey ends here. Thanks for not eating me, kid."
Titus's smile faded, and he said, "But you helped me. You saved me. I don't want to leave you behind." The dragonfly gave a tired smile and said,
"That's what we do when we're older. We help the younger ones fly farther than we could. You'll do the same too one day."
Titus the barn swallow's heart ached. He had flown through fog and fear and learned to trust the stars and laugh through danger, all with the dragonfly by his side and sometimes on his back. He bowed his head out of respect and whispered to the dragonfly, "I'll tell your story every winter, I promise." The dragonfly nodded and said,
"Then I'll never really be gone, will I?"
And with the final beat of his wings, Titus the barn swallow soared into the sky, racing toward his flock. Back with his flock, Titus told them everything. The thick fog, the hungry hawk, the twinkling stars, and the dragonfly who rode on his back and showed him how to navigate the sky. The other barn swallows chirped in awe, and even the older ones tilted their heads in wonder at the story of a dragonfly who didn't go away, but stayed. Titus looked up at the stars every night, remembering the gentle buzz of wings and the wise words that helped him find his way. And each winter, when the flock gathered under the open skies, Titus would tell the story again of how a little bird got lost and how an old dragonfly gave him the gift of finding home. Some of the younger birds didn't quite understand why his voice sometimes trembled at the end, but the older ones did. They knew that part of growing up is saying goodbye, and part of flying forward is remembering who helped you lift off. And the barn swallow lived happily ever after. The end. The barn swallow, or Hirundo rustica, is a small flying songbird with shiny blue feathers on its back and a long tail with 2 points. They can be found in every continent except Antarctica, and in some places like Europe, people just call them the swallow, but they usually mean the barn swallow because it's the one they see the most. There are other birds in the swallow family, like house martins, but the barn swallow is the one everyone just calls swallow. Barn swallows can be around 6 to 7 inches. They have shiny blue feathers on their backs and wings. Their faces and throats are reddish orange. Their tummies are light beige or creamy white, and they have a long, fork-shaped tail. Barn swallows like to be in open spaces, like fields, farms, lakes, and wetlands. They often build their nests near people, like on barns, which is why they're called barn swallows. They'll make their nests on bridges, porches, under roof eaves, inside open sheds, even under picnic shelters or docks. They use mud and grass to make little cup-shaped nests and stick them on walls or beams, anywhere that's dry, safe, and a little hidden. They like places that are high up to stay safe from animals, out of the rain, and close to water and bugs for their food. Barn swallows like to eat tiny bugs like flies, mosquitoes, beetles, and moths. They catch their food while they fly, and they even drink water while they fly by skimming over lakes and ponds. A mother barn swallow can lay from 3 to 7 eggs in her nest. Babies hatch in about 2 weeks, and the chicks stay in the nest for about 3 more weeks before they fly. Both parents take turns feeding their babies. Barn swallows fly thousands of miles to warmer places in the fall and come back in spring. They fly from places like North America all the way down to South America. They use the sun, stars, and Earth's magnetic field to help them know which way to go. Some swallows fly up to 600 miles in one day during migration. Barn swallows chirp and tweet to talk to each other. They warn other birds when a predator, like a hawk, is nearby. Their happy sounds are part of what makes summer feel like summer. Have you seen a real-life barn swallow before? If you have, where did you see it? If you want to write to us, ask your parent to email us at animalstoriesforkids@gmail.com and tell us what you think of our stories. We would love to hear from you. Thanks for listening to Animal Stories for Kids. If you like our stories, please give us a 5-star rating, subscribe to our podcast, and share it with your friends and family. Plus, check out exclusive show-related content and join the community at patreon.com/animalstoriesforkids. Until next time, bye!